Well, it's not your normal Sunday lunch, but it's bulk cooking. Curry, fast curry. Chicken pieces, curry paste marinade for a while, couple of hours. Fast cook, get that off, that's cooked now. And carry on simmering. Chopped onions, straight on the heat. I will brown those. I've got chopped up potatoes, those have been boiled, so they're cooked through, so they don't need to cook in the curry, which will take a hell of a time to cook potatoes in a curry sauce simmering, so they get boiled separately. And I'll put it all together in a minute. So job here, little bit of oil, chopped up onions, get those to the point where they start to actually catch, is the way I call it. So they're not burnt yet, but they're getting close. So not just sweated like a lot of people do with onions, they're actually gonna get browned. And then we'll start mixing stuff up. I'll be back. Now I do have a problem with my cooking, because this is an old cooker and the thermostat on this ring is completely gone. So it's either off or it's on full. And at the moment that suits me fine, because I need the highest heat possible to get this done quickly. So we're getting to the point now, not quite there yet, but what we're looking for is the edges of the onion pieces just starting to catch, so go brown. So not quite yet, but we're not far off. Soon I'll be back. Right, let's have another look. That's right, that's about it. What I'm after, those little brown tinges on the edges. Not burnt. As Jamie Oliver once said, it's not burnt, it's flavour. And those little tinges, excuse me, wine for the chef. So that is about right. Now what we do is we come back to this lot, which was left hot. That's our chicken and our marinade. That goes in. Sizzle away merrily. Stir that in. We're still on full heat here. Red hot under there. And now we're going to cool it down, because these are store-bought curry sauces. Cheap and cheerful. I did try making a curry once when I had some friends round, out of all the traditional spices and cooking everything fresh. It took flipping ages. And I got very fed up very quickly. Now what we've added in there are 3 sauces. One, if you know anything about curry, you know that doesn't exist. That's a made up name. Tikka masala was made up for the English people. That's not a traditional Indian curry, that's cobblers. But that's classed as mild, so that's gone in. And then the one we all know and love well, we've got Madras, and we've added 2 of those, which from this store are classed as extra hot. But because I know them well, they're not extra hot, they're just hot. So that's our sauces. That gives us our bulk. And with the marinade mixed in with that, we will have a quite hot curry. We haven't finished yet. We've got our potatoes, which have been pre-cooked. Saves a lot of time. We can stir those in. Now, as you can see with my, this is a wok, ideally suited to, that's quite warm. Wow! Quite suited to doing Chinese style cooking, yeah, but it also serves very well for bulk cooking because it's deep and big, so I can get a lot in there. But as you can see, we're an inch from the top. We haven't finished yet. So I need to add some more stuff to get that up to the bulk that will give me 8 or 9 portions, one for now, and the rest to go in the freezer. That will last me weeks and weeks and weeks. That's the whole idea. But the one thing I do need to do is get that off of this ring, which has no thermostat and it's going to burn. So we'll move that back there, otherwise it's just going to catch on the bottom of the pan. We have to work with what we got. At the end of the day, if the thermostat's gone and it's either on full or it's on off, we have to work with what we got. So that can now sit on a low heat until I get round to doing the rest, and boy is that hot. So that's turned off now, out the way. That ring is brilliant for my wok and my frying pan if it was thermostatically controlled. But the fact that the thermostat's gone, it's either full on or off. I can utilise that as I just have. I can get my chicken cooked quickly, I can get my onions cooked quickly, but what I can't do is simmer things, which is what I want to do now. So we've shoved everything back there. Right, let's get the rest of the stuff ready. Right, this is where we start getting, you could call it creative if you like. I call it bulking up. Now in the freezer I have various frozen vegetables on the grounds that when you're on your own, fresh vegetables don't work so well because you have to buy large quantities. So I end up with frozen stuff, and that's frozen peas, or bulk, whatever you want to call it. I love peas. I have peas a lot with many things, fish, various meat dishes, but it's one of my favourite vegetables, and when I could grow my own, when I had the opportunity, they were like a priority. Now, I don't care what vegetables go in a curry. If you add them at this stage, by the time the curry's finished, they've still got a bit of taste, so you can actually still taste your vegetables. So I'm going to chuck some carrots in, and these frozen carrots are a pain because although there's lots of nice little pieces, there's some great big pieces as well, and they're not so good in the curry, the big pieces, because they tend to taste of pure carrot and no curry. But we'll have some of those. I like those with various meat dishes. Carrots, good stuff. I prefer fresh in that case, but when I buy fresh I end up wasting them because I can't eat enough of what I can buy. And this is the problem when you live on your own. The portions that you can buy are too big. Unless you can get to a market and buy fresh and say, I'll have 1 carrot please. That's sweet corn. There's also sweet corn that's very cold and freezing my fingers. It won't last long. I don't think I'm going to get frostbite, so that's some sweet corn. Oh. So what we've had peas, we've had carrots, and we've had some sweet corn. It's all bulk. At the end of the day, it will be flavoured by the curry, but by adding it in last, it's not dominated by the curry taste. So when you're eating it, you can still taste bits. These are bits of broccoli and cauliflower, which unfortunately are great big bits. I'm trying to find some smaller bits. But what I'll do is, as I stir this in, once they've become defrosted or defrozen, I can get a knife in there and cut them into smaller pieces so that they separate out. So that's probably about it now. And if that's not enough and it's not full, we have the proprietary tin of baked beans we can add. Because beans and curry work quite well. So what we've got to do now is sink this lot in and see how much we've got. That's going to cool it right down. Adding frozen vegetables to a sauce that was quite warm is going to take it down to incredibly cold. So we'll have to wait for this to heat up again now. And as I said, some of these great big pieces of wow. Reminds me of the film, I think it was The Great Escape or something like that, where they were making illegal alcohol, shall we call it, and they were all tasting it, and everyone that took a sip went, wow, because it was a bit iffy. Now that's about enough. I'm very near the top. If I get much fuller than that, I'm going to dribble over the sides. That's quite warm. I wouldn't call it hot. Spicy hot, I mean, not temperature hot. If I can put my finger in it, it's not that hot. Right, so we'll now leave that to simmer, and all those frozen pieces can get up to temperature, and then I can get a knife in there. And those great big giant pieces can be cut into smaller pieces. Managed to dribble a bit there. It's not like me. So we'll come back in a bit. Okay, the curry has reached the bloop stage, as I call it, which means it bloops, which means anything that went in there as frozen has now got up to temperature, and everything in that pot, cauldron, whatever you want to call it, is now at the same temperature. So it's now just simmering. That's all it needs to do. Flavours will infuse, yeah? Curry flavours will get into those frozen elements. So now it's time. That's multiple cooking. That's going to be 8 or 9 portions. But today I want a portion for me. So now we need to get some rice on. Now I use energy efficient processes. So rather than actually putting cold water in a saucepan and trying to boil it on the cooker, I boil the kettle, which is far more efficient, and get the water in there. So that's okay, it's gone in a cold pan, so it's slightly off the boil, but it's very close to boiling. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to have a curry, which is an Indian base, there are Thai-based curries that are different and very, very special. But that's not an Indian curry, which is what I'm doing now. So I've got basmati rice. Now I buy it in bulk and put it in that little jar. And the reason I put it in that little jar is that I can level it out, put my thumb against it, and pour in a thumbful. And I know that that is exactly 1 portion for me. Give it a stir because it sticks to the bottom of the saucepan otherwise. So that's my rice. Stick that away back in the cupboard out of the way because we don't need that again. And we managed to sploot some water on the cooker, so we'll take that off before it burns. And this will come up to the boil very quickly, but I need to stir it. And there's a reason. This is a non-stick pan. But unfortunately, I had a young son living with me once who liked to play computer games and was obsessed by computer games. And despite me telling him frequently, do not walk away from cooking, he walked away from cooking, and whatever he was cooking in that saucepan burnt, and the saucepan got red hot. He then burnt his hand taking the saucepan off because the handle got hot, and unfortunately this saucepan is no longer non-stick, so I have to stir constantly with fresh rice until it gets back up to boiling. Then we'll set our timer. So the basmati rice we need, well, this is quick cook rice, so this takes 10 minutes, so I set the timer to 11, which allows it to get up to the boil. Obviously if you put cold rice and water in a cold pan, it's no longer boiling. So we've now got 10 minutes to go. Because this is at the bloop stage, it needs stirring quite often. Whoops. Preferably, it needs not dripping over the sides. But we can taste that. Oh, that's warm. Oh, jolly good. Right, so bloop stage, carry on blooping, do your thing. But it does need stirring quite often at that stage, or it could catch on the bottom of the pan. And you'll and with a quantity like that, you'll get it quite hot on the bottom and cool around the edges, despite it being a wok. So our rice is just coming up to boil. So we can turn that down now. And again, when you do this sort of thing often, you know exactly what level to turn it down to keep it ticking over and cooking. So that now needs 10 minutes. That can bloop away. And before we get to the 10 minutes, we need to get in there and get the portions out. So we'll come back in a minute. Right, so we're almost there now. What we've got is the rice a couple of minutes away from finishing. The blooping stage has been doing its thing. Those large chunks of frozen stuff have been chopped up. And now we need to get out what isn't going to be today's meal. And this is geared up to, these are Chinese takeaway containers that I just keep, and they serve a purpose for this sort of thing. And basically 3 spoonfuls, or 3 and a bit, is a meal. So these will cool down and then go in the freezer. And for meals for later dates, which take 10 minutes to defrost in the microwave and get up to temperature, which is the same time as the rice takes to cook. And this is a good way of cooking in bulk for future times. And this number of meals that I'm getting out of this one cook will probably last me 2 or 3 weeks. Which is good stuff, because everything that's gone in here, I know, if you see what I mean. There's not unknown in here. I mean, okay, the store-bought sauces contain various things that I prefer not to have, but what can you do? I can't be asked to literally make up my own curry sauces, so that's how it has to be. So far we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My beeper's just gone to tell me my rice is done, so we'll give that a quick stir, make sure it's not sticking. Now I do different to what a lot of people do with rice. A lot of people do the proportional rice cooking, which is a set amount of rice with a set amount of water, and boil the rice off. Yeah, boil the water off, sorry. And then what's left is rice with no water. Now I don't cook like that. My rice cooks in water, an excess of water. And then what I do is, when it's cooked, so about 11 or 12 minutes, that can go off now, that's for tonight. What I do is I put that in a sieve and let it drain, and then I pour boiling water over it, because I don't like the gloop, the starchy stuff that comes out of the rice. I like my rice clean and fluffy, yeah? So I pour boiling water over that rice to clean it and get all that starchy stuff off, and then that's the bit I eat. So that's how I do my rice. So I put more water in than it says you should, and that's how I cook it. So that and everything else is now going to go on the plate for tonight. So there we go then, light fluffy rice, nicely rinsed, all the starch and stodgy stuff taken off, with boiling water so that it stays hot. And then today's meal, what's left in the pan. Oh, that's rather a lot. Perhaps a little bit more should have gone in the containers, but it's my Sunday dinner. You know, it's not a roast dinner, but it's my main meal of the week, as I think of it. So we'll have that. Lots of washing up to do. So that's it. That's my meal for today. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 portions of the same for the freezer. That'll last me 2 or 3 weeks. I quite like that way of cooking. See you next time.